There is a number in your bank account that changes how your brain works, and it is not $1 million. It is not even close. Most people think their whole life gets easier once they are rich, but the truth is, your life starts getting easier the moment you stop being one bad week away from disaster. Today, I am going to show you the exact number where that shift happens, why it happens, and how you get there, even if you are starting from nothing right now. Stay with me, because the middle of this video is going to change the way you look at every dollar you touch. When your savings sit under $1,000, your brain treats every purchase like a threat. You check your balance before you buy groceries. You feel a flash of guilt after a $40 dinner. You say yes to shifts you do not want and clients you do not like, because turning down money feels dangerous when you do not have a backup plan. This is not weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. It is protecting you from running out of resources. The problem is that same protection mode makes you slower to think clearly and faster to make expensive decisions. And that leads us to the real cost nobody talks about, which I am about to break down for you right now. Here is something most people never calculate. Being broke has an actual tax rate, and it is brutal. When your car breaks down and you have no cushion, you do not pay the repair bill once. You pay it every month for 2 years on a credit card at 20-something% interest. A $400 fix quietly becomes an $800 fix. A missed paycheck becomes an overdraft fee, which becomes a returned payment fee, which becomes a service cancellation. None of these problems are really about the original expense. They are about having zero room to absorb a shock. And once you understand that, you start to see why saving is not about being cheap. It is about refusing to pay a tax that only broke people pay. Keep this in mind, because it connects directly to what happens at $5,000. Meet Jordan and Taylor. Picture two co-workers named Jordan and Taylor. Same job, same paycheck, same rent. Jordan spends everything every month, because next month always feels far away. Taylor puts aside $200 a month no matter what happens. For the first year, nothing dramatic occurs. Jordan enjoys more takeout. Taylor barely notices the difference in daily life. Then, in month 14, both of their laptops die at the exact same time because they bought the same cheap model years earlier. Taylor pays cash and moves on with a slightly lighter savings account. Jordan puts it on a card and picks up a monthly payment that follows them for the next 18 months. Same emergency, completely different outcome. That gap right there is the entire point of this video, and it only gets more interesting from here. The 3 stages of your money. Your financial life moves through 3 distinct stages, and almost nobody explains this clearly. Stage 1 is survival mode. This is anywhere from $0 to about $1,500. In this stage, every emergency is a crisis, and every decision is made out of fear. Stage 2 is the buffer zone, somewhere between $1,500 and $5,000. In this stage, you can absorb small hits without panic, but big ones still hurt. Stage 3 begins right around $5,000, and this is where the real shift happens. You are not rich in Stage 3. You still have bills and stress and a normal life. But something in your decision-making changes, because for the first time, you are not making choices purely out of fear. Let me show you exactly what changes, because it affects far more than your bank balance. When you have no cushion, your employer has almost unlimited leverage over you. They can cut your hours, change your schedule, ignore your requests, and you stay quiet because you cannot afford to lose the paycheck even for a week. The moment you build real savings, that dynamic flips without you saying a single word out loud. You start asking for the raise you have been avoiding. You apply for the better job across town instead of settling. You walk away from a toxic client instead of tolerating them for the money. This is not about being rude or arrogant. It is about negotiating from a place of stability instead of desperation. And desperation is something employers and clients can sense instantly, which is exactly why this next part matters so much. The investing mistake people make too early. A lot of people hear about investing and want to jump straight in before they have any safety net at all. Here's the problem with that. If your only money is sitting in the stock market and your transmission fails, you will be forced to sell your investments at the worst possible time, just to cover a repair bill. That is not investing. That is gambling with your rent money and hoping nothing ever goes wrong. Building a $5,000 cushion first means when the market dips, you can simply leave your investments alone and let time do the work. And once you reach that point, consistency becomes easy because you are no longer investing in fear of the next emergency. This next part is where a lot of people accidentally sabotage their own progress, so pay close attention. The boring money rule. The moment people hit a few $1,000s saved, something strange happens. They start feeling like they deserve a reward. A nicer phone, a weekend trip, a treat-yourself purchase, because seeing real numbers in the account feels like permission to spend. This is exactly how people rebuild the same hole they just climbed out of. Once your savings crosses that $5,000 line, it needs to become boring money. Not vacation money, not upgrade money, just quiet, stable money sitting there doing its job. Boring money is what makes the rest of your life interesting, because it removes the constant background noise of financial fear. Now let me give you the actual steps to get there, because knowing this is only half the job. 5 steps to build your cushion. First, pick a real monthly number instead of a fantasy one. Saving $150 a month gets you there in under 3 years, and that is still a win. Second, automate the transfer the same day your paycheck lands, so the money moves before you get a chance to spend it. Third, keep this account separate from your everyday spending account, so it is not sitting there tempting you every time you check your balance. Fourth, send windfalls straight into this fund. Tax refunds, bonuses, and unexpected gifts should build your foundation instead of upgrading your lifestyle. Fifth, look at your biggest expenses first, because trimming a subscription here and there will never move the needle the way fixing your housing or transportation costs will. Put these 5 steps together, and the timeline becomes shorter than you think. Once you cross that $5,000 mark, you stop asking, "Can I survive this?" and you start asking, "What can I build next?" Emergencies turn into inconveniences instead of disasters. Your job stops having total power over your choices. Your investing finally has room to breathe and compound the way it is supposed to. None of this happens overnight, and none of it requires a lucky break or a huge salary. It requires one boring decision repeated every single month until the number in your account stops controlling the way you think. That is the real shift, and it is available to almost anyone willing to stick with it long enough to see it through. The timeline. Most people get wrong. People assume $5,000 is years away, and that assumption alone stops them before they even start. Do the actual math with me for a second. Saving $100 a month gets you there in a little over 4 years. Saving $300 a month cuts that down to around 14 months. Saving $500 a month puts you there in 10 months. Flat. None of these numbers require a lottery win or a second job you hate. They require a decision you make once, and then repeat automatically every single month without renegotiating it with yourself every time your motivation dips. And motivation will dip. That is normal. The people who reach this number are not the most disciplined people on the planet. They are the ones who built a system, so the outcome does not depend on how they feel on any given Tuesday. Keep that in mind, because the next part explains why most people quit right before the finish line. Why people quit right before the finish line. Here is a pattern worth watching for in yourself. Somewhere around the halfway point, a strange kind of boredom sets in. The novelty of watching the number grow wears off, and life starts throwing small temptations your way. A concert, a new gadget, a trip with friends. None of these things are evil on their own, but pulling from your cushion at month 16 to fund month 17, fun resets the entire clock and forces you to start convincing yourself all over again. The fix is simple, even if it is not easy. Decide in advance that this account is closed for anything except a genuine emergency, and write that rule down somewhere you will actually see it. A rule you wrote down when you were thinking clearly will always beat a decision you make in the heat of a tempting moment. So here is my challenge for you. Open your banking app right now today and set up one automatic transfer, no matter how small it feels. Not next month, not when you get a raise. Today. Comment below with the number you are starting from and the number you are building toward, because writing it down is the first step toward actually reaching it.